Who could lead the United Nations next? This Caribbean climate leader makes diplomats jump with excitement. Prime Minister of Barbados, Maya Amor Motili, addresses a 78th session of the UN General Assembly on September 22nd, 2023. United Nations CNN asked last week if she will run to become the United Nations next Secretary General. Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados gave a thumbs up, smiled, and walked away. Unofficially, however, UN insiders say she is a likely front-runner. The 2026 selection process is still far off, but talk of who is best positioned to win the power job has already begun. Historically, there has been a geographical rotation for the position, so it seems like the next UN leader will be from the Latin America and the Caribbean region, and many advocates say it is time for the female candidate after 78 years of only male leaders. In the hallways and the back rooms of the United Nations headquarters in New York, Motley is one of several names being floated as likely contenders. Two sources said the former Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, will launch a campaign soon, though a representative for Santos denies it. Among others, Argentinian diplomat Rafael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, is also the recurring name in discussions of who might success. Current UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, as Alicia Bárcena, Mexico's Foreign Affairs Secretary, Rebecca Greenspan, a high-level UN official and the former Vice President of Costa Rica, and Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garces, a former President of the UN General Assembly and the former Minister of Ecuador. But it is the charismatic and outspoken Motley whose name often generates the most excitement, though Motley has not yet said she will run. One UN diplomat said, "I would jump up and down with excitement if she did." Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and Grenadines, a neighboring island, said she would have his vote from if she chose to campaign. "I think she would make a great Secretary General," she said. "Whatever she does, I will support her." Could Motley run? Motley became Prime Minister of Barbados in 2018 and won a second term in a landslide election 4 years later. Internationally, she has been noticed for cutting his country's post-colonial ties to the British monarchy and for her powerful rhetoric on slavery reparations, climate change, and the need to reform global financial institutions through the International Monetary Fund and other multilateral banks. Motley does not mince her words when it comes to big powers either. In her address to the General Assembly last week, she asked, "How is it possible for Chevron and the European Union to access the oil and gas of Venezuela, but the people of the Caribbean cannot access it at the 35% discount offered by the people of Venezuela?" In 2022, Motley spearheaded the Bridgetown Initiative, a political plan to reform a global financial architecture and development finance to be more equitable, particularly in the face of a climate crisis. The initiative would change the way money is loaned to developing countries and set up a special emergency fund for climate disasters. In April, Motley also joined forces with the current UN Chief Gutierrez and announced the revamping of her venture called the Bridgetown 2.0, putting forward the 6 development priorities for development finance that will be discussed on the world stage at the annual meeting of the IMF World Bank Group in October, COP28 in November, and the Summit of the Future in 2024. Many diplomats in New York City and outside said they believed in Motley's potential to represent issues affecting the developing world as the leader of the UN, but also in her capacity to bring her unique style of the leadership to the role. I don't think I recall another leader in recent history other than Obama that had the attention of the international community like she does, a UN diplomat said. Still, some warn that she is taking political risk, considering the initiative significantly challenges the status quo for international finance. UN expert Richard Gowan of the International Crisis Group says that Motley has to carefully plan her next steps. Other observers point out that trying to upend existing systems risks angering at least one of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council who hold a final word on the Secretary General's election process. Motley's office does not respond to multiple interview requests. Fight for a woman at the helm. The UN's next Secretary General would take office in January 2027. Is for years too early to start talking about who the next leader of the organization will be. For some, it is necessary discussion to have for the institution that is at each turning point, as it grapples with criticism and geopolitical paralysis in the Power Security Council. I don't think it's early at all. Elena Batonin, Finland's foreign minister, said it is very important to start discussing that because I think it is also very much a question of what the future should look like for the UN and the Security Council. Baltonen and others also say that the time for the organization to have its first woman leader was yesterday. This position should very much be merit based, she said, but I think it would be very remarkable if again it's not a woman who is chosen. The selection process has long been secretive, but opened up a bit in 2016 to be considered. The candidates need to first be nominated by the country, usually their own, and then recommended by the Security Council to the General Assembly. During the last selection process in 2016, a group of countries pledged to only bring forward the woman candidate. An initiative is currently being revived for the next selection process. In 2016, 13 candidates ran, 7 of whom were women. But Gutierrez, a Portuguese diplomat long considered the frontrunner for the role, was ultimately elected. There's always a lot of men that want to run, said Ben Donard, head of campaigns at the United Nations Association of the United Kingdom. This year, he said, I hoping the message is coming through loud and clear from the majority of states and from civil society that no state should be putting forward the male candidate. We are all working to increase the stigma around this. Hopefully, we can nip it in the bud. Susanna Marcora, a former candidate in 2016 Secretary General elections and the co-founder and president of the advocacy group Global Women Leaders Voices is also working to make sure the political pressure will bring female candidates forward in the next cycle. It is not so much about it is it's not so much about talking about Julie or Anne or Mary. It is more about talking about the Madam Secretary General as the general proposition, and then making sure that we pave the way to get there, she said. But not everyone agrees with the approach. Dennis Francis, the president of the 78th UN General Assembly, who is from Trinidad and Tobago, does believe men should refrain from running. I believe that men should run next time around as I believe women should run in their numbers, he said. Because what I would want to happen is for the woman to win in those circumstances, not from the field of a woman. That would be the wrong message. And with the powerful Secretary Council is already frozen on the number of issues since the beginning of Russia's war in Ukraine. It's hard to imagine its members ultimately finding a consensus on any single candidate. All I have to say is grab your popcorn, Julia Marcial, a diplomat from Paraguay, said.